Jonah woke up every morning at exactly 5:59 a.m. No matter how late he stayed up, poring over spreadsheets or double-checking inventory for the local shipping company he worked at. He was religious about this routine, convinced that discipline was key to weathering life's storms. And in his 32 years, he'd weathered more than most. The first blow struck on an ordinary Monday. His fiancée, Beth, left him without warning or explanation. She scribbled a note saying, "I can't do this anymore," and disappeared. Jonah was heartbroken but held fast to hope that love or divine guidance would prevail. He prayed with steely resolve, refusing to believe fate had fully turned on him. But fate wasn't done. Days later, his supervisor fired him over a bizarre clerical error he'd never committed. The system logs had shown he'd deleted crucial shipping documents at 3 in the morning, documents he had never touched. Yet the evidence was undeniable on the screen, deleted by Jonah M. Those who knew him believed it to be some glitch. Others whispered he'd just snapped. Regardless, Jonah was out of a job. He retreated to his tiny, dimly lit apartment, only to find a letter taped to the door, declaring the building was scheduled for demolition. He had 2 weeks to vacate. That same night, his phone buzzed with tragic news. A freak accident had left his best friend, Derek, paralyzed from the waist down. Derek's fiancée found Jonah's number saved under brother, presumably because the two had been inseparable since childhood. Weeping, she told him Derek might never walk again. Jonah's whole world fell apart faster than he could pray for guidance. Yet, like the ancient sufferer, he didn't curse the heavens. Instead, he prayed harder, woke up at 5:59 a.m. each day, and sought side jobs to keep himself afloat. He told anyone who asked that he trusted the plan. But with each passing misfortune, the edges of his faith began to fray. One night, around midnight, he trudged back to his soon-to-be-demolished building and noticed an ominous figure standing under the flickering hallway light. The stranger's skin looked ashen, stretched taut over sharp cheekbones. Pale eyes bored into Jonah. "Endurance is admirable," the figure hissed with a grin that never touched his eyes. "Keep your faith, Jonah. Keep it, even when there's nothing left." Jonah blinked, and the stranger was gone. From that point on, Jonah's nightmares grew more vivid. Each dream featured the same voice, hissing in his ear. "More is coming. Will you still have faith?" Indeed, more calamities arrived. A pipe burst in his crumbling apartment, destroying the few belongings he had left. He tried to salvage what he could, but mold and sludge smothered his valuables. The next day, he learned his old company was suing him for financial damages related to the shipping fiasco. His bank account went into the negative, and he found himself on the verge of homelessness. Still, he knelt and prayed. At last, on a stormy night just before he had to leave his apartment for good, Jonah collapsed onto his living room floor. He cried out, "Why? Why is this all happening?" Lightning illuminated the room in a painful strobe, thunder shaking the walls. In the corner stood that same figure, poised in shadow, head cocked to one side as though amused. "You've stayed loyal, Jonah," it said, stepping forward until only inches separated them. "You never cursed your maker. You never raged against the hand that strikes you." Jonah's tears blurred his vision. "I refuse to believe I'm being punished. I know there's a greater plan, even if it's impossible to see. I still believe." The figure smiled, revealing too many teeth. "Oh, Jonah," it whispered, "your faith was never being tested by the one you pray to. It was me all along. I needed your devotion to remain unbroken so that your spirit would burn brighter. An unwavering faith is far more potent for my purposes." Suddenly, the peeling wallpaper on the walls blackened and curled, revealing a swirling void behind it. A terrible howling wind tore through the room. The figure's voice boomed. You had the chance to curse and break free, but you chose to cling to a false hope. That hope has power. Power I can feast upon. With that, everything around them shattered into swirling darkness. Jonah felt his soul twist in that churning void, as if centuries of torment were compressed into a single heartbeat. When the darkness receded, Jonah stood alone in the silent, wrecked apartment, his life in ruins, and a sickening epiphany took hold. In that moment, he realized, the tragedies he endured were never part of any grand design. They were orchestrated by something old and malevolent, something that thrived on the steadfastness he'd treasured. The only reason it had tested him so thoroughly was to secure the most precious prize, unwavering faith, so it could feed upon it. Through the broken window, the glow of dawn crept in, revealing Jonah's hollow eyes. Outside, the city carried on oblivious to his fate. Jonah understood, with chilling finality, that sometimes loyalty and trust aren't rewarded, they're exploited. And in his final horror, he learned that the darkest tests don't come from the divine at all. They come from what lurks beneath,